I now recognize our chairman of the Cyber Security Subcommittee, Mr. Garbarino, the gentleman from New York, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much for holding this hearing. I love how you had him place the Pivot Act in his last answer and say how he had to pass it again. That was well placed there. Thank you all to the witnesses for all being here. It's great to see you all again. This hearing is very important, and I think your focus on China has been, it's obvious that they are our number one adversary, and if we can combat and defend against China, we can probably defend against everybody else. Because they're the best at what they do. We have to be better. I want to talk about what CISA should be doing, and are they doing what they should be doing? What else? What other authorities should we give them? Mr. Wales, you were there for a very long time. You were executive director and acting director. What should CISA be doing that it's not doing, and should we give them any more authorities that they don't currently have to step up their game and defend against China?
Yeah, so I would say that, looking at CISA's two primary missions in cyber, one is to help protect the federal government's networks, and two, to help support the security and resilience of our critical infrastructure networks. In the federal government space, thanks to a lot of resources and authorities from the government, I think CISA needs to continue the momentum. We are in a much different place than we were in 2020 during SolarWinds. The federal government is far more secure today. It's the reason why federal government agencies identified compromises at places like Microsoft, because of the investments that Congress has made in both CISA and across the federal government. I think there it's about building momentum and keeping that going. When it comes to critical infrastructure, it's a much more challenging problem. It's a much more crowded space. CISA's real role is to be that focal point, to coordinate amongst all of the other agencies that are working in this space. I do think CISA has sufficient authorities, but it's really an issue of scale. Can we meet the scale of the challenge with both technical assistance, training? Do we have the right tools to bring to bear to meet this challenge? And I do think that there are areas that need work, and I'm hoping that the Trump administration will focus on how do we improve the operational collaboration, build on the framework that exists today with the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, but take it to the next level, continue to drive improvements in our ability to work side by side with industry on day-to-day operational cyber threats. And I think that is where the most urgent need is.
You talk about defending against the federal networks. The executive order that was signed, I think, last week tried to do that with threat hunting. A lot of agencies don't like CISA participating on their networks. Does the executive order go far enough, or is it something we have to act legislatively to tell, and everybody can jump in here, to tell these agencies, hey, you have to let CISA do its job and threat hunt here?
This builds on authorities that Congress gave to CISA in the FY21 National Defense Authorization Act that gave them the ability to threat hunt on federal agencies without permission. That was important. Then supplemental funding allowed the deployment of endpoint detection and response technology that gave the security sensors the ability to actually hunt on. This executive order requires agencies to actually provide that sensor information to CISA that allows them to conduct that threat hunting. It is absolutely essential. That is the way that you spot adversary campaigns early. It is the way you look consistently across agencies, so you're not dependent upon the differences in capabilities at various agencies, the amount of staff, et cetera. So I do think that part of the executive order is strong. I don't necessarily know that they need additional legislative authority, but it is something that is going to be important for the next administration to continue to push agencies to ensure that CISA has the level of visibility it needs to conducting the threat hunting that gives you the cybersecurity outcomes that you want.
Thank you. Ms. Walton, did you want to add something? It looked like you were getting ready to. And if you don't, that's fine. I have other questions. Okay. And you talked also, Ms. Wells, about information sharing, I think, is what you were getting at between private and public sector when it comes to critical infrastructure, because 80% or 85% of critical infrastructure is controlled by private sector. Do we have that type of information sharing now? I don't think we do, and I think sometimes it happens well, and sometimes it doesn't happen very well.
This is I've been talking about information sharing since I joined the department in 2005, first starting on counterterrorism, now in cyber. There is always ways that we can improve information sharing. It has improved dramatically over the past 8 years. But there is a long way to go. And it's also a question of, do you have the right private sector in the room? Are you sharing information at a speed at which it can be effective in the cybersecurity context? And are people capable of using that information to improve their security in real time? And I think there is a lot of work to do to make sure that that happens.
Going both ways. And I'm out of time, but I did just want to say beforehand, Rear Admiral, your comments on continuation of the economy in your written statement is 100%, I think, on point. We directed the Biden administration to come up with a plan. They failed. And I think this is a huge thing that we need to work on with the Trump administration. We have to come up with a real continuation of the economy plan, just like Congress bipartisanly directed the administration to do. So with that, I yield back, Chairman.